It was a typical Monday morning at Millwood High, and the school was buzzing with the usual chatter of students hurrying to their classes. The bell rang loudly across the campus, signaling the start of another day of learning. But for one student, today would be different. Tariq Johnson, a 15-year-old African-American student, walked into the school with a quiet determination. He was known around school for his calm nature, his brilliant mind, and his love for basketball. Yet, he had always been cautious about keeping a low profile, especially around Principal Thompson, the notoriously harsh principal who had a reputation for picking on students, especially students like Tariq. Tariq had never been a troublemaker, but Principal Thompson always seemed to find reasons to make his life difficult, whether it was an accusation of tardiness when he was actually on time or a punishment for something trivial. Tariq always felt like he was being unfairly targeted. Today, however, was different. It started when Tariq, who had been running late due to a missed bus, entered the school late. He tried to hurry to class, but as soon as he walked into the hallway, Principal Thompson was waiting for him, arms crossed. "Late again, Johnson?" Principal Thompson sneered, his cold eyes fixed on Tariq. "You've got to learn some discipline, or you'll never make it out of this place." Tariq tried to explain, but the principal wasn't interested in hearing it. "I'm tired of hearing your excuses. One more tardy and you'll be spending the rest of the day in detention. Do you understand me?" Tariq nodded, but he couldn't help feeling the weight of injustice pressing down on him. He had tried to be on time, but it wasn't enough for Principal Thompson. Tariq knew deep down that no matter what he did, this man would always find a way to make him feel small. Little did he know today was the day that would change everything. As Tariq walked past Principal Thompson, he noticed a few students snickering behind him, the whispers of the principal's harsh words still echoing in his ears. But none of them knew what Tariq knew. The man who had been tormenting him for so long had no idea who he was really messing with. Later that evening, as Tariq sat in the living room doing his homework, he couldn't shake the feeling of anger and frustration that had built up throughout the day. He had always respected authority, always tried to follow the rules, but no matter how hard he tried, Principal Thompson seemed determined to make his life miserable. Tariq's father, Marcus Johnson, was his rock, always calm, always supportive. But tonight, Tariq knew he had to speak up. "Dad," Tariq said hesitantly, glancing up from his homework, "I don't think I can take much more of this. Principal Thompson, he's always on my case, and today was the last straw. He's treating me like I don't belong at that school." Marcus, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, looked up from his newspaper. His expression softened when he saw the frustration in his son's eyes. "I'm sorry, son," Marcus said, putting down the paper and walking over to him. "I know it's been tough, but you've got to understand that some people, they can be cruel for no reason. Sometimes they're just afraid of what they don't understand." Tariq frowned. "But I don't deserve to be treated like that. I just want to learn and play basketball. I don't want to be picked on because of the color of my skin or because of how I look." Marcus sighed deeply, running a hand over his bald head. "You're right. No one deserves to be treated like that. But you know what? Your father has a little more power than most people think." Tariq raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" Marcus smiled, a glint of something dangerous in his eyes. "I just got appointed as the new superintendent of the district, and I plan to make sure you and every other student is treated fairly." Tariq's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait, what? You're the new superintendent?" Marcus nodded. "That's right. And it's about time that some things around here changed, starting with Principal Thompson." The realization hit Tariq like a wave. His father wasn't just any man. He was in charge of the entire school district. If anyone could make things right for him, it was Marcus Johnson. The next morning, Tariq woke up with a sense of determination he had never felt before. As he got ready for school, he couldn't help but wonder how things were going to change now that his father was the new superintendent. He knew that Principal Thompson wasn't going to know what hit him. Tariq arrived at Millwood High, his steps confident and steady. He could feel the tension in the air as he walked through the halls, knowing that today would be a day of reckoning. When he entered the school office, he saw Principal Thompson standing behind the counter, looking as smug and self-assured as ever. "Well, well," Principal Thompson sneered as he saw Tariq walk in. "What is it this time, Johnson? You're on time for once. I'm impressed." Tariq didn't respond. Instead, he just walked past the principal's office, heading straight for his first class. He knew that today wasn't about small talk or arguing. It was about making sure Principal Thompson understood who he was messing with. As the day went on, rumors began to spread. Whispers filled the halls, and students exchanged knowing glances. No one knew exactly what was happening, but everyone could feel that something was about to change. It wasn't until lunchtime that Principal Thompson received the news that would shake him to his core. As he sat in his office, reviewing some papers, there was a knock at the door. He looked up, irritated. "Yes?" he called out. The secretary entered, holding a letter in her hands. "Sir, we've just received this from the district office. It's an official order from the new superintendent. It's regarding a staff matter." Principal Thompson's brow furrowed in confusion. "What's this about?" The secretary handed him the letter. As he read it, his face turned pale. The words on the page were clear. "Effective immediately, Principal Thompson is being reassigned, and a new interim principal will be appointed in his place." A chill ran down Principal Thompson's spine. He couldn't believe what he was reading. It was his worst nightmare. Being replaced, just like that. But what really struck him was the final line of the letter. "The new superintendent's orders are final." He looked up at the secretary, his mind racing. "Who is this new superintendent?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The secretary hesitated before answering, her voice soft but clear. "It's Marcus Johnson, sir. Tariq's father." Principal Thompson's mouth went dry. He had no idea what kind of man Marcus Johnson was, but he had just learned a very valuable lesson. Never mess with the wrong family. The news spread like wildfire across Millwood High. By the time the final bell rang, every student knew that something big was happening. Whispers filled the hallways, and curiosity reached a fever pitch. Tariq, who had spent the day trying to keep a low profile, found himself surrounded by his friends after class. They all had one question: what happened? Tariq just smiled, his eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. "You'll see." Principal Thompson, meanwhile, sat in his office, fuming with anger. He had been humiliated. Not only had he lost his position, but he had lost it to someone he had never expected. Tariq's father. He couldn't believe it. How had he not known that Tariq's father was the new superintendent? How had he been so blind to the power of the Johnson family? The realization that he had made an enemy of the wrong person hit him like a ton of bricks. But there was no time to dwell on his mistake. Principal Thompson's phone rang, cutting through his thoughts. He picked it up, his voice tight. "Hello? Thompson?" Came a deep voice on the other end of the line. "This is Marcus Johnson. I need you in my office now." The shock of hearing the voice of the man who had just taken his job sent a jolt of panic through Principal Thompson. He wasn't sure what was worse, the fact that he had lost his job, or the fact that Marcus Johnson was the one to take it from him. As Principal Thompson walked into the district office, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had no idea what to expect from Marcus Johnson, but he knew that the man wasn't going to let him off easy. When he entered the office, Marcus Johnson was standing behind his desk, his arms folded across his chest. His expression was calm, but there was an undeniable authority in his presence. "Have a seat, Thompson," Marcus said, gesturing to the chair in front of him. Principal Thompson hesitated for a moment before sitting down. He tried to keep his composure, but the tension in the room was palpable. "I'm sure you know why you're here," Marcus began. "You made a mistake, Thompson. You treated my son with disrespect, and for that there will be consequences." Thompson's face flushed with embarrassment, but he didn't speak. He knew there was nothing he could say to defend his actions. "You humiliated him, harassed him, and mocked him for no reason. You treated him like he was inferior," Marcus continued, his voice steady but firm. "That's not something I take lightly. And now, you're out of a job." Principal Thompson opened his mouth to protest, but Marcus raised a hand to silence him. "There's nothing left to say. You're being reassigned to another position, effective immediately. Consider this your final warning." The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Principal Thompson had no choice but to nod. There was no escaping the truth. He had messed with the wrong student, and now he was paying the price. The next morning, as Tariq walked into school, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of excitement in the air, but there was also an air of uncertainty. Many students had heard about the changes at the top, and they weren't sure what to expect. When Tariq entered the school, he was met with a new sense of respect. His classmates looked at him differently, as if they suddenly realized that he wasn't just some kid from the wrong side of town. He was the son of someone who had the power to change things. As he walked through the halls, Tariq felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He knew that his father's influence had made a difference, and that Millwood High would never be the same again. Principal Thompson was gone, replaced by someone who understood the importance of fairness and respect. Tariq knew that his father had done more than just secure his future. It had secured a future for every student at Millwood High who had ever been treated unfairly. As Tariq sat down in his first class of the day, he felt a sense of pride swell in his chest. He was no longer just a student at Millwood High. He was a symbol of change. A reminder that no one, no matter their skin color or background, should ever be made to feel inferior. And with that, the new chapter of his life began. By the end of the school year, the changes at Millwood High were undeniable. Principal Thompson's harsh discriminatory tactics had been replaced with a focus on inclusivity, fairness, and respect for all students, regardless of their background. Tariq had become an unwitting symbol of change, but he had come to realize that his father's influence extended far beyond his own experiences. The new superintendent, Marcus Johnson, had worked tirelessly to ensure that every student at Millwood High had the opportunity to thrive. As the school year came to an end, Tariq stood at the podium at graduation, his heart swelling with pride. He had overcome so much, not just for himself, but for every student who had ever been unfairly treated. He looked out at the sea of students, his friends and classmates, who had all benefited from the changes his father had brought to the school district, and as he took his diploma in hand, he realized that this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey. The legacy of justice, fairness, and equality was now firmly planted at Millwood High, and it was a legacy that would last for generations to come.